I'm sitting in my home office at 2 a.m., scrolling through Nissan's latest quarterly report, and I literally said out loud, "What the hell," when I saw this number. 90% profit drop. Not 9%. 90% in just 6 months. I had to read it 3 times because my brain couldn't process it. I'm thinking, how does a company that big just collapse? But then I kept digging, and what I found was even worse. 11,000 people just got fired. 7 factories are shutting down. And according to multiple reports, Japan's once coolest car brand has maybe 12 months before they're completely bankrupt. I thought there's no way this is just bad luck. So I spent the last week investigating exactly what killed Nissan, and what I discovered will change how you think about buying cars forever. I'm staring at these numbers on my laptop screen, and honestly, they look like a typo. Operating income fell from $1.2 billion to just $32 million. That's not a decline, that's a free fall off a cliff. But here's what really got me. I called up a buddy who works at a Nissan dealership in Ohio, and he told me they're selling 400 fewer cars per month than they were 5 years ago. Corporate just sent them an email saying they're cutting their inventory allocation again. I thought, okay, maybe it's just the US market. So I looked at China, their biggest market. October 2017, they sold 180,000 cars. October 2024, 61,000. That's not a bad quarter. That's a company bleeding to death. And then I saw the layoff announcement. 11,000 people, 7 factories closing, the CEO taking a 50% pay cut. When executives start cutting their own salaries, you know they're in panic mode. But here's what nobody's talking about. This didn't happen overnight. There's a deeper story here that goes back years, and it starts with one of the most spectacular corporate scandals in automotive history. Back in the 1990s, in Tokyo's bustling automotive district, Nissan was the rebel brand that every car enthusiast wanted. While Toyota played it safe with boring sedans, Nissan was in their design studios creating cars that looked like they came straight out of an anime movie. The Figaro looked like a cartoon snail. The S-Cargo literally looked like a snail. And the original Z car was pure automotive poetry. I remember thinking as a kid, Toyota is what your dad drives. Nissan is what you drive when you want to be cool. But then everything changed in 1999. Nissan was drowning in debt, and this Lebanese-Brazilian executive named Carlos Ghosn swooped in like a corporate superhero. He slashed costs, closed factories, and somehow turned the company around. For nearly 20 years, Ghosn was untouchable. The media called him a genius. He was making millions. And then, November 19th, 2018 happened. Tokyo Airport. Ghosn steps off his private jet and gets arrested for financial misconduct. The man who saved Nissan was allegedly stealing from it. But here's the crazy part. While he's under house arrest in Tokyo, this guy literally hides inside a musical equipment case and gets smuggled out of Japan like he's in a spy movie. One day he's in a Tokyo jail cell. The next day he's holding a press conference in Lebanon. I thought, you can't make this stuff up. But the real damage wasn't just the scandal. While Nissan was dealing with this corporate chaos, they made a fatal mistake. They stopped investing in new products. They stopped listening to customers. And they definitely stopped paying attention to what was happening in China. Because while Nissan was imploding, Chinese automakers were quietly preparing to take over the world. I'm looking at China's car market data from 2024. And the numbers are absolutely brutal for foreign automakers. 63% of all cars sold in China are now made by Chinese companies. That's up 27% since 2020. But here's what's really insane. Chinese automakers can build a new car model in 18 months. Nissan? It takes them over 5 years. I'm thinking, how do you compete with that? You literally can't. And it gets worse. These Chinese EVs have a 30% cost advantage even without government subsidies. So they're cheaper, they're newer, and they're coming out faster than Nissan can even think about responding. I found this one statistic that made my jaw drop. In October 2017, Nissan sold 180,000 cars in China. By October 2024, that number fell to 61,000. That's not market competition, that's complete annihilation. But I thought maybe this is just an EV problem. Nissan had the Leaf back in 2010. They were pioneers in electric cars. So I dug deeper, and what I found was even more depressing. The Leaf basically hasn't been updated in years. While Tesla was making cars that looked like spaceships and Chinese companies were pumping out gorgeous EVs that cost half the price, Nissan was still selling the same boring electric car from 2010. One industry expert told me that Nissan had the vision to go electric, but they didn't have that special sauce to make their products attractive or emotionally appealing. Tesla nailed that. Chinese automakers are nailing that. Nissan completely missed it. And now, Chinese cars aren't just dominating China. They're spreading to Thailand, Indonesia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. All the markets where Nissan used to make decent money are getting flooded with cheaper, better Chinese alternatives. But here's what shocked me the most. China isn't even Nissan's biggest problem. Their real disaster is happening right here in America. I'm sitting in my car outside a Nissan dealership in suburban Chicago, and the parking lot is practically empty on a Saturday afternoon. The average Nissan dealer in America is selling 400 fewer cars than they were 5 years ago. Meanwhile, the average Mazda dealer is selling 266 more cars. So, this isn't a Japanese car problem. This is specifically a Nissan problem. I talked to a dealer who's been selling Nissans for 15 years, and he told me something that perfectly explains why customers hate this brand. A customer comes in with 36,001 miles on their car. The CVT transmission is completely dead. The customer asks, "What can you do for me?" The dealer calls Nissan corporate for help, and they say, well, it's out of warranty, so it's the customer's problem. That's a 4-figure repair that the customer has to pay for on a car that's barely 3 years old. Compare that to Toyota. When they had potentially defective engines in 100,000 trucks and SUVs, most of those engines were probably fine. But Toyota said, hey, we don't want there to be even a perception of a problem, so they recalled everything and fixed it for free. I'm thinking this is exactly how you destroy customer loyalty. Nissan is asking, how can I sell another car today even if it costs me 2 sales tomorrow? Toyota is thinking, I care more about the 2 sales tomorrow, so I'm going to treat the customer right today. And it shows up in the numbers. Nissan brand sales fell 34% during the pandemic. Their luxury brand Infiniti fell 55%. That's the worst performance of any brand in America. But the product lineup is even worse. They just announced they're discontinuing the Titan pickup truck. Pickups are huge profit makers in America, and Nissan is just giving up. Their new Infiniti SUV is priced at $100,000. For that money, you can buy a Range Rover, an Escalade, a BMW, or a Mercedes. Nobody thinks Infiniti belongs in that category. One dealer told me they were excited about this new product at first, but then they realized it's completely overpriced for what people actually want. The value of Nissan dealerships has crashed compared to Toyota stores. There might be a bigger gap between Toyota and Nissan dealership values than we've ever seen before. But here's the thing that really tells you how desperate they are. I'm reading Nissan's latest press releases, and every single announcement screams panic mode. The CEO just cut his own salary in half starting in November 2024. When executives start taking pay cuts, you know the company is in serious trouble. Other executives are following suit, though they won't say exactly how much they're cutting. They're shuffling executives around like deck chairs on the Titanic. The CFO is now running the China business. The America boss is becoming the new CFO. The new guy is taking over Americas. I'm thinking this looks like chaos, not strategy. But the biggest news is they're desperately trying to merge with Honda. This would create the world's 3rd largest automaker with market share comparable to Toyota. They're basically admitting they can't survive on their own. Industry experts are saying this merger is their only shot. Together they might have enough scale to compete with Toyota and the Korean brands. Separately, Nissan is probably dead. One analyst told me that both brands would do better in the US marketplace and be better positioned to survive against the Chinese invasion. Because, make no mistake, Chinese brands aren't coming to America anytime soon, but they're already dominating everywhere else. Nissan declined to give interviews, but they did release a statement saying reports about only having 12 to 14 months to survive are based on speculation. They claim they have strong liquidity and are investing in new products. But here's the question everyone's asking. I'm looking at Nissan's cash flow projections, and honestly, the math doesn't look good. They have enough cash to operate for maybe 12 to 18 months at their current burn rate. But that assumes nothing else goes wrong. No major recalls, no economic downturn, no more market share losses in China or America. The Honda merger is their best shot, but mergers take time. You're talking about regulatory approvals, shareholder votes, integrating to two completely different corporate cultures. Even if everything goes perfectly, we're looking at 18 to 24 months before they see any real benefits. I talked to an industry analyst who's been covering Japanese automakers for 20 years, and he told me something interesting. Nissan has been the number 3 Japanese brand forever. Toyota, Honda, then Nissan. They've always been the Japanese stepchild, and now that weakness is finally catching up to them. But here's what gives me a tiny bit of hope. The new Nissan president is actually a car guy. He's already announced they're going to revive the GTR and bring back some legendary nameplates like the Silvia. If he can pull that off efficiently with an optimized supply chain, they might have a chance. Nissan does have one advantage in America. They have 6 models starting under $30,000. In a market where high prices are driving away customers, being the affordable option could actually work. But I keep coming back to the same problem. Why would someone buy a Nissan when they could buy a Toyota or Honda for similar money? Better reliability, better resale value, better dealer experience. Nissan hasn't given customers a compelling reason to choose them. One expert told me we're going to see one of the most serious automotive crises since 2011 and 2012. Multiple brands could disappear. But he also said the strength of Nissan and Infiniti might be sufficient to survive, particularly if they can find the right partner. My prediction? If the Honda merger happens quickly and they can fix their product quality issues, Nissan survives as a smaller, more focused company. If the merger falls through or takes too long, we're looking at bankruptcy or a fire sale to a Chinese company by the end of 2025. I just got the latest financial reports, and it's even worse than I thought. Nissan just posted a $4.5 billion net loss for fiscal year 2025. That's not a typo. $4.5 billion down the drain. This is approaching their worst ever annual loss of 684 billion yen from 1999 to 2000, right before they almost went bankrupt the first time. What's really scary is their revenue only dropped 0.4%, but their operating profit collapsed by 87.7%. That means they're spending way more money to make way less profit on every car they sell. That's the definition of a death spiral. And here's the kicker. They just announced they're cutting 15% of their global workforce. We're not talking about 11,000 jobs anymore. We're talking about potentially 20,000 people losing their jobs. I'm thinking this isn't a turnaround story anymore. This is a company in complete free fall. I'm sitting here wondering what happens if you own a Nissan right now. If Nissan goes bankrupt or gets sold to a Chinese company, your warranty could become worthless. Parts could become harder to find. Your resale value, which is already terrible, could completely collapse. But here's what really worries me. Nissan isn't the only one. The entire automotive industry is going through the biggest transformation in 100 years. Electric vehicles, Chinese competition, supply chain chaos, inflation. A lot of traditional automakers are struggling. I talked to a dealer who told me he's already seeing customers avoid Nissan because they're worried about the company's future. Nobody wants to buy a car from a company that might not exist in 2 years. If you're thinking about buying a new car, my advice is simple. Stick with financially stable brands. Toyota, Honda, even Hyundai and Kia are in much better shape. Don't gamble your hard-earned money on a company that's fighting for survival. And if you currently own a Nissan, now might be the time to trade it in before the resale values get even worse. This isn't just about one car company. This is about the end of an era and the beginning of something completely different.